Welcome back. Daniel had been found guilty of praying to God. It was his custom to pray to God 3 times a day, and it was so well known that the other satraps and governors had used this devotion of Daniel to enact a law that anyone petitioning anyone, man or God, other than Darius, the king, for a 30-day period would be thrown into the den of lions. Darius realized the setup immediately upon the accusation being lodged against Daniel, but it was too late. He was frustrated at himself for being so gullible. He sought to find a way to extract Daniel from the sentence of being thrown into the den of lions, but alas, he could not. Finally, he was pressured into passing the judgment and causing the sentence to be enacted. In this portion of the account, we see the impact of Daniel's life of prayer upon the life of this world leader. In Daniel 6, beginning in verse 16, we read, "So the king gave the command, and they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. But the king spoke, saying to Daniel, 'Your God, whom you serve continually, he will deliver you.' Then a stone was brought and laid on the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet ring and with the signets of his lords, that the purpose concerning Daniel might not be changed. Now the king went to his palace and spent the night fasting, and no musicians were brought before him. Also his sleep went from him. Then the king arose very early in the morning and went in haste to the den of the lions. And when he came to the den, he cried out with a lamenting voice to Daniel. The king spoke, saying to Daniel, 'Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to deliver you from the lions?'" Note the budding faith of Darius. First, there is the expression of faith that Daniel's God may be able to pull off this miracle. Undoubtedly, he had heard of the other events of Daniel's life and that of his 3 companions, which we'll look at later. Second, he fasted all night. I often ask myself, wondering, to whom do you think that Darius fasted? Do you think he was fasting to his gods? Or, since he's referring to this God of Daniel's, isn't it more likely that he is fasting, petitioning the God of Daniel? I believe he probably was crying out to Yahweh, the God of the Hebrews, the God of Daniel. Third, we see that faith expressed again when Darius runs to the den, when he makes the statement toward Daniel, "Daniel, servant of the living God." I find that very interesting, that at this point Darius is defining the God of Daniel as the living God, as opposed to all the other gods. Can you imagine Darius's joy and the impact it must have had upon his understanding of spiritual things when he heard Daniel's response? We read about that beginning in verse 21. It says, "And Daniel said to the king, 'O king, live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, so that they have not hurt me, because I was found innocent before him. And also, O king, I have done no wrong before you.' Now the king was exceedingly glad for him, and commanded that they should take Daniel up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no injury whatever was found on him, because he believed in his God." Darius had just witnessed a miracle in which he potentially played a vibrant part. Yahweh, the one and only true God, the living God, had revealed himself to Darius through the faithfulness of a willing servant. I have to ask myself the question, does my life draw others toward the living God? Do people see faith in me that will draw them to the one and only true God? We are testimonies. We are. One way or the other, you are a witness of what you believe about God. Whether we believe that he is able to do exceeding abundantly above all that we ever ask or think, whether he is sovereign over the entire universe, whether there is nothing too hard for our God to do, whether he can turn the hearts of kings whichever way he chooses, or whether he is impotent, unable to accomplish things that need to be accomplished. Daniel had a great faith in his God, that when he was commanded to not to pray, he trusted in his God, and in the end, his God justified him. God may not prevent us from being eaten by the lions. There were many believers throughout the histories who have been fed to lions, and they weren't spared. But even when they weren't spared, their faith provoked others to come to know this true God that was so powerful that he was able to keep them in the midst of that trial. Daniel had the privilege of being used by God to impact the life of a powerful leader on this earth. What about you? Ask Yahweh to help you to be a faithful servant that would lead others to himself. Take time to pray and have a blessed day.